It was only a matter of time. With all the countries we've been talking about whose politicians are proposing wealth taxes to take 1, 2, 5, 7% of rich people's money every year, now Australia has joined the fray. The Green Party of Australia proposing, according to the Sydney Morning Herald, a $40 billion billionaires tax. I'm going to tell you all about it. And even if you're not a billionaire, I'm going to tell you why you should be concerned. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. I'm the author of this book, and here at Nomad Capitalist, our team of over 40 people, our network of global experts, and yours truly help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you're treated best. More at nomadcapitalist.com. So here's the article. Sydney Morning Herald. That's the name of the paper, right? The Greens, the article says, are targeting billionaires including Gina Rinehart, Clive Palmer, and Kerry Stokes with an ambitious plan to impose a wealth tax that would raise more than $40 billion over 10 years, from just 122 individuals. Now, I'd like to make 2 points to this before we go any further. Number one, if you are one of those 122 individuals, we are happy to assist you here at Nomad Capitalist so that you can leave Australia and that these predictions, you can laugh in the face of this Green Party who has predicted, as these politicians always do, they never think anyone will leave. Right? In California, Governor Gavin Newsom said, "Where are you going to go? Where are you going to go? There's nowhere to go." There are lots of places to go, Gavin, and people are going. And so if you are one of these people who is going to be taxed into oblivion, there is an opportunity potentially to leave the country and deprive them of the money they so desperately seek, the same way there is in every other country when people move to greener pastures. That's the first thing. Second of all, where else does this work, by the way? We're going to raise $40 billion over 10 years from just 122 people. Hey, we're going to raise $40 billion by knocking over 122 jewelry stores. That's all it'll take, folks. And one other way is robbing people of their wealth, which I would argue is partially been created by these government policies, whereby people had to sit at home and they had to order things from people like Jeff Bezos, whose wealth has increased dramatically. That's a side issue, but let's continue with the article. The policy, which would impose, get this, a 6% tax on an individual's wealth above $1 billion, will be announced in Brisbane on Sunday. This is an older article, by party leader Adam Bant and co-deputy leader Larissa Waters. I'm guessing neither of them have run a hot dog stand in their life or anything better. Just a guess. The pair will campaign aside Max Chandler Mather, the party's candidate in Kevin Rudd's old seat of Griffith, which is currently headed by Labour MP Terry Butler, none of whom I can promise you have ever run a hot dog stand. The proposed billionaires tax would capture all the assets of a high net worth individual, including property, artwork, jewelry, cash on hand, and shares, some of which is relatively easy to hide or shift overseas. However, the likelihood of it ever being legislated with support from the current coalition or a future Labour government is low. That said, that may be correct. Here's the problem. I've told you this story before. I was in Turkey almost a decade ago, had the misfortune of sitting next to a guy from, I forget where, the UN or one of those do-nothing organizations. And I remember talking to him about different policies, and I said, why is it that, gay marriage, for example. I remember being a kid in high school, 15 years old, reading about, hey, civil unions, that was the talk in political circles. And then, just kind of slowly emerged. And here we are, 20, 25 years later, now you have gay marriage. I said, why don't you just say, here's what we want and go for it? He said, you're small-minded, he said. He said, people won't adapt that quickly. You have to kind of feed them very slowly to where, it's this, and then they get comfortable, and then it's this. To me, it seems rather unethical. If you believe in having a certain kind of rights, just go for it. Right? There is, despite as much as I disagree with them, the Green Party or other parties around the world, at least they're going for, at least you know where they stand. At least you know if you're a successful person who believes in delivering value to consumers and becoming wealthy in the process, at least you know they're the enemy. There's no minced words here, so I do respect them for that. I have a hard time respecting, let's just, gradually move things forward. But let's be honest, the Greens are not in charge in pretty much anywhere in the world. And so what you're going to see is over the coming years, gradually it's going to make its way. The Greens are going to influence the more traditional parties. And this idea of a wealth tax is gradually going to come out. What you already have in the West right now is the breeding grounds for a place where this could easily be passed. Because after all, the article says it's only 122 individuals. Who really cares about them, right? Just give me my free stuff and get out of the way, old man. And so that already exists. There are politicians who are a little bit too timid to do this besides the Greens, and so it may take a while. But growing up in the U.S. and following U.S. politics over the last 20 years, nobody was talking about the stuff economically now that people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is talking about. Nobody's talking about wealth taxes like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders want. There's not such an anger towards wealthy people. In North America, 9 out of 10 millionaires inherited nothing. They did not become millionaires through any inheritance of any kind. I presume it's relatively similar in Australia. And yet, that doesn't matter because the politicians have already done their job in plowing the fields, as it were, getting people ready for the idea that you can come in and just tax people because they have wealth. And so basically the article goes on and on and on and talking about how super rich individuals should be stopped from being able to circumvent the tax. There was one proposal, which I think was part of this one, where they said, we're going to basically lock you in. The minute we propose this, we're going to lock it in and say 90% of whatever you have is going to have to be taxed. And so even if you want to go overseas, you're not going to be allowed to do that. Now, I happen to believe in freedom, and if you don't want to live in Australia, either because the taxes are too high or you're just sick of living on a rock in the middle of the ocean, then you should be able to leave for whatever the reason. I left the US because, first and foremost, just didn't like living there. And then I discovered what I now share with you at Nomad Capitalist, which is, you can also dramatically lower your tax rate too. And so that's a nice bonus, but it wasn't the reason why I left. And so to say that people shouldn't have the choice to leave, to me is just silly. But that's exactly what the politicians in Australia, we've talked about New Zealand, we've talked about the UK, we've talked about Canada, we've talked about the US, South Africa. Lots of countries right now are proposing these wealth taxes, which have failed miserably in almost everywhere in Europe. But that's not the point. The point is these politicians have been laying the groundwork to basically go after wealthy people. And by the way, it's not going to be 22 people forever, because those 122 people will figure out a way to work through the system. They'll call a guy like me, they'll do something else. Some of them, maybe not billionaires, but some people, as I talk to, just say, you know what? I'm done. It's not worth it anymore. I already have hundreds of millions of dollars. Some people tell me, what do I need to keep working for? For what? So I can give 58 cents away and be a jerk, be called a jerk? This is what's happening in the West, what I call legacy brand countries. The Sydney Morning Herald is reporting it. Is it going to happen right away in Australia? They seem to think no. I can't entirely disagree with them. But the problem is once this stuff gets on the radar, once it makes it into the Sydney Morning Herald, once it gets into the consciousness, people start asking for it. And then you look at, again, what are you seeing in the West in the last year, in the last 10 years? We want free this, we want free that, we want, pay for our university. Everything's a human right. Work. There's a guy who wrote a book on the virtues of working 15 hours a week. What do you do with the rest of your time? What purpose is there for existing? That the entire purpose of life is sitting on a beach sunning your buns? What's the purpose of exist? What are we here for? But that is a very popular idea now. And so if you believe you're hardwired as I am to want to work and want to create value, and that's giving more options to consumers, and maybe you're happy to pay some tax, but none of that matters anymore in the West. And that's exactly what you're seeing. I think you're going to see this creep more and more into the consciousness in Australia, into other countries. Nothing happens, no big societal change. Just as the guy from the UN, just as the guy I sat next to in Turkey told me, nothing happens overnight. The question is, when it does happen, will you be ready? Will you already be out of the country? Will you already have your tax home set up somewhere else? Will you already potentially, even if you're Australian, have your second passport? Because who knows what these guys could say. There's already been talk in some countries like Australia of, well, how dare people who carry our passport don't pay us for the privilege? You're not a citizen, you're a slave. And so when that comes into place, will you already be ready? Not all those things may happen, but the point is, the greatest peace of mind I had in leaving the US is not having to worry about what fakakta ideas some politician will come up with next. I'm out. And I think if you do the same thing, you'll be ready for when this wealth tax not only gets implemented on the billionaires, but then when the billionaires figure out how to get around it, it trickles down to the guys with 100 million or 50 million. And I'm not going to make fun of you for not having $50 million, but what I am going to say, I'm certainly not going to do that. What I am going to say is, a lot of people who invested 100 grand in Bitcoin a couple of years ago have $50 million right now. A lot of people who are building businesses that if you had to value the business, hey, maybe you got 20 million bucks in the bank, maybe the business is worth 30. a lot of ways you can get to 50 million or 20 million or whatever threshold they set. In the UK, they came right at £500,000 threshold. These things always have a way of working their way down. It's not going to be 122 people forever, because you will find more things that people want for free. You will find more projects for politicians to waste money on. You will find more ways for them to blow your money. And then 122 people won't be good enough. And then they'll be coming for more people. This is something to keep an eye on from Australia. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.